our Living Stones podcast, where we gather to discuss all matters of faith and life as members of God's household. In a world that often leaves us feeling fragmented and disconnected, our hope is that Living Stones will help to further connect us as we pursue the Lord together. I'm your host, Davina, and today we have the joy of speaking with Pastor Lou and Lisa Gallo, his wife Lisa, and they are currently serving in South Korea with a unique and urgent calling to minister to the North Korean defectors with the hope of reunifying South and North Korea. So I'm personally so blessed by who you are, what you bring to not just the missions work that you do, but even into my life. So thank you guys for coming.
Yeah, thank you for inviting us.
Yeah. So this is a missionary highlight, and many of our church members will be listening to this. So there's plenty of us that don't really know who you are. Maybe just that we know that we support you.
Yes.
So if you can share a bit of your background, you can start really from anywhere. That would be great.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, so our background story is we both were born on Long Island, and we both went to the same high school. And I was 2 years ahead of her, even though we're only 13 months apart in age. Of course, she looks like my daughter, which is okay. But I tell everybody, because she's so beautiful, it's because I'm such a good husband that makes her look beautiful. Peace and joy radiate through her. No, I'm just kidding.
I love it.
It's the Lord. But we actually were high school sweethearts. And she was my chatsarang, so my first love. And we got married in 1979. We have 5 children, 4 boys, who 3 of them live on the West Coast. One is stationed in Ireland, in Dublin. And Alyssa, our daughter, is living in Seoul. She's fluent in Korean. She graduated from a Korean university in her second language, did very well, and now she lives in Seoul.
And I know she has a big impact to your journey to Korea. So
right.
I'm excited to hear about that.
Yes, you're right. And so, yeah, it's interesting how the Lord, opens doors that no man can open. And by God's grace, we were able to walk through those doors with a lot of faith. But I think Lisa tells this part of the story the best.
But how long have you, I think you were living in Virginia too, though, after your time in Long Island.
Right. So I became a pastor in 1983. I became a pastor and was a pastor in New York for 10 years.
Wow.
And then we moved down to Northern Virginia, and that was in 1993, so 10 years in New York. And then I was a pastor here for 16 years, so retired a little early in 2014.
Nice.
And then in the beginning of 2015, so actually now it's coming up on 10 years, February 14th? 13th.
Wow.
It will be 10 years that we've lived in Korea. So that part of the story Lisa's great at telling, but it's quite a remarkable journey.
Yeah.
Well, part of what brought us here to Northern Virginia was I had been very ill with Lyme disease in New York and literally almost died in 1992 from it by the time I was diagnosed. So in 1993, well, during that time, Lou was pastoring a very vibrant, growing church. And so trying to break away to care for our 4 small, young children and me was very, very difficult.
Yes.
So really through praying, we felt like he needed to transition out of ministry. And then we had dear friends that were pastoring a church in Northern Virginia, and they were like, why don't you come here? And so after a lot of prayer and making sure that God provided a pastor for the church on Long Island, we did move here with our 4 sons and moved in with a family that offered for us to stay with them. They had just bought this beautiful new house, all white carpet, white everything, and I have 4 little boys. And so we're living with them and
Perfect.
trying to, right. And, but, when I moved here, to be honest, I had to find new doctors, the thought of a new church, new friends. It was quite overwhelming because I really literally thought I was coming here to die. My brain had been swollen. I had a lot of neurologic issues, fatigue issues. And so I can't really say I came here in faith and hope for a new chapter. I really thought my chapter was ending, but God had other plans, and here I
Yeah.
still am. So I'm so grateful. My stress test at that time showed that I had the heart of a 70-year-old. So I'm a living miracle right now to even be here. So
Wow.
grateful for that. So the person that we lived with is such a man of faith. His name is Chris, and anytime he saw me just, leaning on a counter in their house or uh, crawling up their stairs sometimes because I couldn't even walk up, he would just pray over me. And he always said, Lisa, God's going to heal you. He's not done with you yet. And so it's just such a joy. We're actually staying with them on this visit.
Wow.
And just to be able to recount God's faithfulness over these 30-something years. So grateful for that. So then we're here in Northern Virginia, and Lou was asked to come on staff, as you said, what, 80,
So we moved in 93. It came on
93,
staff in
90,
1998.
98, right. And it was in 2007, as we were serving faithfully in the church, that our then daughter, 10 years old, had cancer and totally turned our world upside down. And went through that season. And the reason I state some of these stories is that I just want to offer hope that no matter what season you find yourself in, maybe you're facing health issues or financial issues or hardship, God is a redeemer, and we're just so grateful that he doesn't leave us where we're at. And sometimes it takes longer than we hope, and sometimes it's ways that we never expect, but God is just so faithful, and our whole family is just a redemption story. And we never would have dreamed that God would have this next chapter for all of us, even our daughter, now she's actually in entertainment in Korea, and cancer was in both of her legs, and she's a dancer. And, so just it's like every time I watch her dance, I just cry because I'm just so aware of God's redemptive work and healing power. So, um, it was through our daughter, around the age of probably 14, where she suddenly started listening to K-pop music, which at the time, if you remember, was not really popular.
Yeah,
wasn't
not
like
here.
wasn't like it is now. And she's growing up actually she's adopted, and her adoption was a little unusual in the sense that her birth mother claimed that she didn't know her nationality. So our daughter grew up in her teen years not knowing who she was. And there was something about Korean culture that just captivated her heart. And she would go to the library and, read about the culture and the history of Korea. On her 16th birthday, we took her to, what was it, Breeze, was it called? The Korean
In
bakery.
Annandale.
And I called them ahead of time, and I said, if I buy a cake there, will you sing happy birthday to my daughter in Korean? And you would have thought we gave her $1 million for her 16th birthday. That was the highlight. Was being sang, Sangochuka, in Korean for her birthday. And so God was just doing something in her heart. And she says, Mom, I know I'm not Korean, but I just feel a draw to the Korean people. So little did we know that as a result of that, we would get an email one day where we were asked to host a North Korean defector who was being brought to America by an artist, a Korean American artist who lived in Maryland. And she had done a art exhibit in Seoul, and this young defector came to her exhibit. And the reason he was drawn to her is because her art reflects the struggles of North Korean people. And they developed a relationship. She happened to be a Christian. She really sensed from God that she was supposed to kind of take this North Korean orphan, under her wing. So her and her husband hosted him to America. The problem was when he got here, he didn't speak any English, and they owned a dry cleaning business. So they were gone pretty much from morning to
Yeah.
night. He was just sitting in their apartment. So this email went out, and I remember receiving it and reading it, and I'm like, a North Korean 20-year-old, and we have maybe she was 15 at that time. Our sons were all married and out of the house at that time. So I really kind of dismissed the email, and I forwarded it to other friends who had sons.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, because at that point in my life, the only thing I knew of North Korea was what you hear on the news.
Mm-hmm.
And, I had some fear. 3 o'clock in the morning, I was woken from a deep sleep and just had this very strong sense that we were supposed to do it. So in the morning, I mentioned it to Lou, and he's like, okay, well, take them, but I'll sleep in front of her bedroom door at night and guard her door because we really had no concept of what to expect. So anyway, we pick up this young man. He gets in our car. We don't speak Korean. He doesn't speak English. I remember actually doing a search, like, what do Koreans eat for breakfast? Like, I mean, I had a few Korean friends in our church, but I really never related with any of them that close, and certainly never a North Korean. And I remember making like some soup and some rice and some kimchi, and I had chopsticks. And I remember him coming down in the morning, and I had that laid out. And of course, that's nothing like an American breakfast. And he was just so happy eating away. And I thought, "Whew, okay, I guess I did something right."
Yes. Did a
But
good
then,
job.
but then I remember that morning also, we found him sleeping on the living room floor, and I had made up a nice guest room for him. And I was like, "Is everything okay?" Like I'm trying to motion because we can't speak. And later found out that he had never slept in a bed before. He was used to the floor, so
Wow.
he was more comfortable on the floor. But how to explain what God did in our hearts with this young man? We fell in love with him. By the third day, we were asked to bring him to a meeting where for the first time, we would hear his story of how he escaped. So for 3 days, we didn't know anything about him other than our hearts were being drawn to him. So we brought him that night to this meeting, and there were actually 2 other defectors there that night. And through an interpreter, we sat there and heard their stories. Um, Sorry, I don't know why I'm going to cry, but it just turned our world upside down because we had no idea about what people in North Korea were going through. And, I remember thinking, I was at Starbucks earlier, like choosing which flavor coffee I want. And people in North Korea are living this way now, eating tree bark and grass just to fill their stomachs. And so we both were just, so affected. And we said, this sounds like a modern day Holocaust. We have to do something. And so one of the things we learned also that shocked us that night was how much they had to pay to a broker to escape from North Korea. And it was in the thousands. And, how do these people do that? And how do the brokers do that, risking their lives? So we thought, okay, naively, we thought, oh, we'll do something. We'll do a fundraising concert. We had never done a concert before, and you need venues for a concert, and we didn't have any, as far as entertainment. But God, even in that, miraculously through Redeeming Grace Church in Fairfax, they kindly let us run a concert that night, a fundraising concert where we were able to raise $10,000
Wow.
in one evening. And I remember, kind of stressing and praying about, people to perform. And one night I got up again, 3 a.m. is my magic time, I guess, and searching. And I must have searched YouTube. I didn't even remember there was YouTube back then, but there must have been, because I remember this band popped up with this white American looking guy who was singing Lonely, I think it's 21.
21. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's singing in Korean. And I'm like, who is this band? Maybe they would play. So of course I called the next day and spoke to one of the band members, and their price was like way up there. And we didn't have money. We were just looking for people to donate their time. So anyway, I told him the whole story, and he says, well, I'm not sure what we can do, but I'll mention it to our leader, the band leader, and, maybe he'll get back to you. So sure enough, I think it was the next day, I got a call from David Towler, and he was the lead musician of that band. And as I shared, he said, please tell me what your event is. So I told him the whole thing, had never met him, had no idea that he was a Christian. And he said to me, I just want you to know I'm a Christian. And for years, I've been praying about how I can help the people of North Korea. I really want to do this, and I really want to play at your concert. Let me talk to my band. They're not Christian, and let me see what I can do. And
Wow.
he got back to me, and history is that they played. It drew a large crowd, and God just put it all together, raised $10,000 in one night. And we were able to, through one of the NGOs of one of the defectors that we met that first night, she had an NGO to help either children or orphans, and we were able to rescue a young girl. And she's thriving,
Wow.
actually, and living in Northern Virginia now. It's just an incredible story.
Wow. And when was this?
So the concert was back in 2012. We um, we sent the money, to the broker fee, but we never heard anything more about the young girl. And I remember often, like sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night and just think about her. And I was like, God, how is she doing? Is she thriving? Because we had heard just initially that she was having a hard time adjusting. She was living with a family in Colorado. And it was during COVID. So this is now 2019 probably, or 20 maybe. It might have been the beginning of 20. I was home in our apartment in Korea. And as I walked through the living room on the TV, I heard this South Korean woman interviewing this North Korean young girl. So, of course, I heard North Korea. I sat down and was interested. And as she began to share her story, suddenly, everything was lining up because we were very involved in North Korean work during 2014. So I really was so intrigued. And the next day, she put up an Instagram, like her name. So I found her and I messaged her. And we finally realized that she was indeed the young girl that we had.
Wow.
Yeah. And so she became a U.S. citizen 2 weeks after we connected, sending me photos that day of that event for her. And then she was able to get her, passport. She was able to come to Korea for the first time,
Wow.
where she was reunited with her mother. She hadn't seen her in 8 years. And they actually reunited them on the show. It's like On My Way to Meet You or something. It's a show in South Korea where they kind of reunite.
Mhm.
So the South, the entertainment company kept them separated in different hotels and did this very dramatic
Right.
reunion. But it was very sincere. I mean, they hadn't seen each other in such a long time. And so shortly after that, she came to visit us in Busan. And we've been together many times. When I was here last summer, I stayed with her. Yeah, so it's just, God is just, she's a thriving businesswoman and just growing and enjoying her freedom in
Yeah.
Northern Virginia, actually.
That's amazing. And
Yeah.
you were able to see her and meet her after you committed to serving
Mhm.
Yes.
South Korea.
Yes. So we had been in 2000, when did we move?
15.
2015. After hearing from, we were starting to work in Northern Virginia after this meeting where our lives were turned upside down, meeting that first defector. Living in the Burke area, we were able to host many North Koreans in our home. So they started kind of using our home as a place to rest, and also because they were speaking on Capitol Hill for the human rights atrocities at
Yes.
that time. They were
Mhm.
testifying. So we had students that came from Korea. I remember one Sunday was the Super Bowl, and we had a bunch of students from South Korea, and Lou made them kimchi pizza. Remember, babe?
Yeah.
And they loved it.
It's actually very good.
It is very good.
Yeah, I remember you guys saying that they said it was
They
really
said
good.
it was really
Yeah.
good, and we actually
I
enjoyed
thought
it.
it was very good.
And of course, they didn't know what a Super Bowl was, but
Mhm.
it didn't matter. They loved the kimchi pizza. And then we got to host a couple of other kind of high profile defectors who are still dear friends to this day. And it was just so incredible because at the time we had a South Korean student living with us, and we had no idea that God was going to use him to prepare us for life in Korea someday. And he was an ROK Navy SEAL in Korea. So if you think about who he was trained to
Mhm.
as the enemy, it's North Koreans.
Mhm.
But suddenly he's being faced with the face of North Korean people. And it's very different than the government of North Korea. And God really used that time with him living with us to just soften his heart and he said to us, I never thought about the people, And so that was a very strategic and beautiful thing that we saw unfold, where this former RK Navy SEAL now was saying, let him stay in my bedroom and, helping with, preparing food for them. And it was just beautiful to see. So through that, we became affiliated with a woman, Suzanne Schulte, and she's a human rights activist who's been working in that arena for over 3 decades. And through her, we learned of a school in South Korea, in Busan, that it wasn't even a year old at that time, was looking for native English speakers. And to this day, it's kind of a funny thing in our marriage. We don't understand what happened, but Lou was transitioning out of full-time ministry and was going to go back into the marketplace, and we were going to devote more time to North Korean work. And he actually got
In the States.
in the
though.
States.
Yeah.
In the States. He got a very good job as a property manager, offer, and everything looked like it was going to work out. And then we hear about this school, and the both of us have this like nagging, like, oh, well, this is a volunteer position. Of course, we can't afford to do that. That doesn't make sense. But it was just nagging. And through a miraculous intervention, when we were transitioning out of the church, they had an event for us where everybody was thanking us. And that evening, one family gave us a check. And oddly enough, we had, kind of looked at airline tickets, and we were trying to justify, can we do this right now financially? No, it wouldn't make sense because you're leaving and we don't know financially how quickly we're going to start getting a salary. But the check was $200 shy of what the tickets would have been.
Crazy.
And so it got our attention,
Yeah.
but we were still like, well, I don't know if we're still supposed to go. But later that week, we got a $200 check from Apple for like not a rebate? It was like a class action lawsuit, I believe. And it was the exact amount for 2 tickets. And then the young South Korean student who was living with us, Chris, he had some friends in Seoul, Korea. So they greeted us as soon as we got there, and they housed us for a while, showed us around some of Seoul. And then we took the KTX down to Busan, went to the school, absolutely fell in love with these kids, fell in love with the vision of the school, and we were ruined. It was like, okay, well, maybe we'll do this for 1 year. So prior to that trip, we had started an NGO. We were starting the paperwork, and we were getting ready to launch an NGO called NK Missions. And that was with the thought at the time that we would help defectors here in America. We had had for dinner this family, the Kim family, who had 2 teenage sons, a mother and a father. We had them for dinner. The poor father had worked in the coal mines of North Korea for so long. He was a young man. He wasn't old. He maybe 40. And he couldn't even sit at my dining room table. He had to go lay on my floor because he couldn't sit in a chair. His back was so destroyed from the work that he had done. And then we followed them, and they had so much trouble trying to get the kids signed up for school and trying to get a job. And that's what really launched NK Missions was, okay, we want to help North Koreans assimilate. So we thought we could work with local churches, local communities, businesses, help them with language training, job training. So that's what we thought God was doing with us until we visited this school. And then we thought, okay, well, maybe this makes sense. For 1 year, we'll go to this school. We'll work more closely with North Koreans, and then we'll come back to America, and NK Missions will continue its work. But that was 10 years ago.
Yep. I know. I was thinking, you're still
and we're
there
still
right
there.
now.
So, yeah, NK Missions has grown and developed in ways that, we never anticipated. We had the privilege of teaching at that particular school for 8 years. And then through a change, actually, during the last administration, a lot of the North Korean institutions, schools, went through some financial hardship because a lot of the funding was withdrawn or lowered. And so our school sadly came to us one day and said, we can't host your visa anymore because we can't afford to house you, because the visa agreement is that they have to provide housing. I could go on for an hour about God's provision for us. We've had to move 5 times in
Yes.
10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And it has been a little stressful at times. And there's all kinds of miraculous furniture stories I could tell and things like that. But God has been so faithful to provide for us. Yeah. So in our work as well, just opening doors that we never dreamed. Do you want to talk a little bit more about some of the programs that we've done?
Well, yeah, the Cornerstone was probably one of the first
Yes.
churches.
Yeah, I was looking at pictures, and I have pictures from 2017.
Right.
That's when Pastor Paul,
Yes.
Danny
Yeah.
Bay, Min, and we did our first vision trip down
That
there.
was such a highlight. I'll never forget it.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, and we've been friends ever since.
Yes.
Right.
That was
It-
such a
it-
gift
it
to
was-
us.
It was
Yeah.
and it gave us a picture of what could be. And so then, since then, of course, you guys sent another team,
Mm-hmm.
and then also a team from American University came. And so we had this kind of model for how to do camps, like week-long camps.
Mm-hmm.
And that model, we've used that model, over and over again. So you guys are really instrumental
Wow.
Thank you.
in helping us.
Awesome. I'm glad.
Yeah, to just see like what could be. and what we could do. And so
that
we
was-
actually took
yeah.
that model, and right before COVID, we did a camp with the Hana Center, which is so the Hana-Won, which is where all the North Korean defectors go when they first get to South Korea.
Okay.
After that, that's 6 months. So there's a security NIS part, 3 months, and then assimilation part for 3 months. After that, they go all throughout the country. Most of them go to Seoul, but some come down to Busan.
Mm-hmm.
And in the cities, there are something called Hana centers. So these are social welfare centers to help with the assimilation, to
Mm-hmm.
continue on, making sure that they get to a place where they're, productive, they're thriving, so forth. So obviously there's kids involved in that.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been working mostly with kids, middle school, high school. So we did a camp with the Hana Center. We did it at our church, and it was a 1-day camp.
It's a government program?
Yes,
The
it is.
government,
Oh, and they agree to partner
Right.
with a Christian.
Yes,
Right.
and the Ministry of Unification. And
Right.
so they're funded by the
Wow.
Ministry of Unification. We weren't allowed to talk about God at that exact camp,
right?
But still,
but we
Right.
they
could,
knew you were a Christian
Yes,
organization.
they did.
and they've
And
actually,
they knew we were going to do it at a church.
right.
It's crazy. Okay.
Yeah. So the model that we used was similar to the model that we learned from Cornerstone, and we just compressed it into 1 day. And so we had about how many kids? Maybe 40 kids at that camp,
Wow.
and it was a incredible success. At the end, they did a survey of the kids, and it came back, and it was like 98% approval. Like 98% of the kids said we would do this again, and the people at the Hana Center said we have never had any organization, any program we've ever done with that high of an approval rating.
God was so kind. Yeah.
So
I didn't know that.
yeah, so recently they actually contacted us again, now after COVID, and asking us
To
to
do another
do
one.
another camp.
And this is in Seoul.
No, this is in Busan.
Oh,
in
in
the
Busan.
Busan one. They're all over.
Okay.
Hana
'Cause
centers
I know
are
you
over.
do something in Seoul too.
Yes, we do.
But I just want to back up for a minute. So although we're not allowed to preach the gospel at the camp for Hana Center, I actually was asked to do one-on-one tutoring for a young man that came to our camp.
Mhm.
And actually, there's been 2 students that have come out of that. And so then when I meet one-on-one, of course, I can share
Yeah.
freely about the Lord. And, he's in the military now. And, we've kept in touch. We've taken him out to dinner. And so it's just so fun, even though with those confines, you can't keep God out of things.
Yeah.
So he does what he wants to do. So we're just so grateful and excited about, doing another one.
And God has used Lisa, because this young man was applying for a program in Australia to do welding,
Welding program.
and of course, needed to know English, and so
Yeah, all the interviews were in English.
Everything
He had
was
to
in
write his
English.
essay in English.
right. So Lisa was instrumental
Oh, for
in
sure.
helping him to get accepted, and he did, and he went to Australia.
Wow.
Yeah, and was in that program.
Yeah.
And there've been a couple others. I think one in particular was we had the 10-year anniversary event
Saturday evening.
February 1st.
Right.
Yeah. A couple days ago.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah, whenever this is airing. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Whenever this, a couple days ago from today.
Yeah, February 1st we
yes.
did it.
Yes.
And we had one of our students there, and she is studying in Boston, in Brandeis, getting her master's degree. And of course, English, it's a Fulbright program. And so to qualify for that, there's an English proficiency that she has to have. And Lisa was instrumental in helping her to get accepted and come now to America, getting her master's degree in international development. So helping developing countries to thrive and prosper.
It was so neat. Singsup and I attended the 10-year anniversary update, and it was so neat to watch her and to listen to her story, and then also add how much Teacher Lisa helped me. And
Incredible.
It's amazing that you get to experience some fruit
Yeah.
of like your labor.
One of the things that is a strong conviction of ours is that so she was actually a student at Jungdaeon School where we taught for 8 years, not through one of the camps, but we feel very strongly to stay connected to the alumni who graduate out of our schools, because the alternative schools that the defectors attend are so important, because they come to us with so many different levels of educational background, some of them with none. We've actually had a 20-year-old who came who she had never been to school, and she just worked hard to get through all the
So middle school,
elementary, middle,
school.
high
Yeah.
school.
at 20.
Yeah.
She
doing
did it
all
all.
of
She
it.
got
Did it
kind of the
all.
equivalent of what we would say a GED, and actually has been married and became the mother of twins this year.
Wow.
So we just, she's just one of many, but we're going to a wedding of another one of our first students when we get back to Korea in early March. And, it's just very important to stay connected with them. And out of that relationship, actually, another thing that NK Missions is just started this year is a tuition assistance program, because the students who are North Korean receive aid from the South Korean government for their their college education. But the North Korean Chinese students do not. And so we have many students that have been their mothers were trafficked to China, and they're a product of that. But when they come to South Korea, they have all the benefits except for they don't get that aid. So we have some wonderful graduates who fit in that category, and they're trying very hard to go to college. So we're hoping to broaden this program and help more of them to be able to succeed. So we were able to give our first donation to one young man, and he just made us a beautiful video thanking us, and I wish I could show that to you. It's just really precious, but we hope to broaden that and continue helping him and others.
Yeah.
So just staying in touch with the alumni. We love that they feel like we're family to them.
Yeah.
And, especially, how they grow up, Americans, we've seen actual, coloring pages of kindergarten in North Korea where they show, American soldiers with their boot on their head or a gun to their head, or, what would appear to be like a missionary with a cross, pulling out their liver, and this is their coloring pages in elementary school.
Yeah.
So as you heard our student share the other night, she was apprehensive at first meeting us, but God won her, she was won over when she saw that we really care.
Yeah.
And we really love them. And so now many of them want to come in our suitcase when we come home. And another thing that NK Missions has been just so grateful to do is to bring some trips of the North Korean students to America for a trip where they'll, just get to see America, get to meet Americans, get to sit at the dinner table of an American family, which is very unusual for them.
Do you remember there was one year that I think it was with Sue and Kwangun?
Kwangun.
Yeah.
And then I forget the third.
Well, her English name was Helen.
Yeah. I remember she was pretty private.
Yeah.
She didn't want,
She had
her name or her photo.
Right.
Yeah.
Because
So
our family's still in North Korea. Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
But yeah, I remember when they came,
Yes.
we took them out to Dave and Buster's.
That's
that's
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
That
You
was
did.
so fun because I remember them even from the time that Cornerstone did take a team to Busan, and we did that week long.
Right.
They were, or at least Sue and Kwangun were
Yes,
there.
that's right.
Right.
Yeah.
So to see them here,
Yeah.
it was such a blessing.
Yeah. And they had so much fun.
Oh, we had so I mean, Dave and Buster's.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
But
they're
yeah.
always, they always comment, I had no idea that Americans cared. I had no idea that there are American churches praying for us.
Yeah.
So, and, Cornerstone allowed them to come and share some of their stories.
Right? Mhm.
Mhm.
So again, you guys have just been so instrumental, and it's life-changing for them,
I
you
mean,
know.
both of our trips, the first one too,
Yeah.
came to Cornerstone.
Yeah.
And, I forget who told their story. Maybe Kwangok, which is Suok's
Sister.
older sister.
Yeah.
I think she's getting married, by the way.
Suok
is
yeah.
getting married.
When we
Yeah.
get back.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll be
Oh,
at-
that's the wedding
That's
you're
the
going
one-
to.
that's the wedding we're going to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's incredible. I can't
wanna
believe all
come?
this time has. I would love to. I can't believe all this time has passed already. They were
Right.
students and now they're getting married.
know.
Right. Yeah, she graduated college.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So, you have shared like just so much about what you do and the people that you've ministered and to the students. So I feel like typically when I do like a highlight of one of our missionaries, they tend to have a concentration. But it doesn't seem like you guys really do. Like anything under the umbrella of NK missions.
Mhm.
So I'm wondering, like, as of now, where are you guys? Like
Right.
what is I guess like the vision for right now?
Right.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, there's been changes for sure. And Lisa highlighted one, is that we thought we were going to be in America. We were going to be helping with assimilation, but God has different plans. And I would say that, I don't want to sound super spiritual here, but this is the truth, is
Mhm.
that our mission is what God tells us to do
Mhm.
and what doors he opens
Mhm.
for us. And they have been amazing to us. And so recently, like one of the challenges that we face is visa, as Lisa has talked about.
Mhm.
And so I was at the largest church in Busan, a mega church, and I was there for 6.5 years. And we felt like we needed to make a change because there was some restrictions, particularly on travel, how long we could be away.
Mm.
And so we started doing some research. We thought that we would be establishing NK Missions as a Korean NGO.
Mhm.
And so this sending, receiving thing with visas is very important. NK Missions is recognized by the Korean immigration, by the government as a sending organization. So we have sent missionaries to Korea. But as a receiving organization, that's a different thing.
Mm.
And so, it was the school, then it was Seongro Church who was sponsoring us. And so we thought maybe we could get NK Missions as a Korean NGO to be the receiving organization. So NK Missions sends, NK Missions receives.
Makes sense.
So, but that was becoming very, very difficult to do.
Every door.
And every door was closed. And then, it sounds cliche, but it's true. I mean, it's like you can't walk through, and you shouldn't walk through closed doors
Mhm.
unless they're stuck and God wants you by faith to push it.
Mhm.
We did have one lawyer who said he would be willing to do it for $40,000.
Nice.
Right. But we
Yeah,
were
we
like,
didn't think
Nice.
that was
40,000.
what we were supposed to do
Yeah.
with that. So I actually sat down with a president of a university in Busan, and it was through some email correspondence. And I had actually met this guy before. I didn't realize until I sat down with him that I had met him. And he looked at us and invited us to his office. We were in this president's office of this university, wonderful university in the city, and said, "What can I do for you?" And we said, "I don't have no idea what you could do for us."
someone told us, you have to go meet this guy. And it wasn't until we got there that we realized who we were meeting.
Yeah. Why are
And
we
then
meeting
why
him?
are we meeting him?
Well, we didn't know why we were meeting
No,
him.
right.
And so I said, "I have no idea." He goes, "Well, what do you need?" And so I launched into this 20-minute explanation, of what we needed. And so then he is a brilliant man, and he summarized it in about 2 seconds. And he said, "Okay, so what I'm hearing you say is that you need a visa and you need flexibility." It's like, oh, yeah, I guess I could have said that.
Makes sense.
And he said, "How about if I hire you?" I'm like, "What?" "Hire you as a professor, an adjunct professor. You get a E1 visa. It's the best visa that a foreigner could get, so not, there's F3 or F4, I forget which one it is, for Koreans moving back to Korea. That's a great visa.
Yeah.
But as far as like a Weiguken, straight up, not Korean, no tie to Korea, it's the best visa you can have." And so I was like, okay, I feel like we're going from the frying pan into the fire here. Like, how's this going to work? And he just laid it out. And I said, okay, let me pray about this. And, let's, Lisa and I will talk about it. The next thing I know, they're setting up a meeting. They're very aggressive.
Well, can I just say the one thing that was so intriguing at that meeting was he knows our work is with North Koreans. And we said, you have several North Koreans in your college. Some of our alumni are here. And he was like, I do.
Yeah, he didn't know.
And he said, I want to meet
Oh.
them. So we actually were meeting one of our students. After his meeting, we told her we were going to be there, and she was meeting us downstairs. So this poor girl, we go down there, and we're like, the president wants to see you, you
Out
know.
of nowhere.
Yeah. And
And she says, I'll be late for my class. I said, don't worry about that.
yeah, I don't think you have to worry about that.
When
So
you get back, tell your professor that you're with the president.
Yeah.
No problem.
So we brought her up, and he just so kindly expressed to her that, anything I can do to help you, I want to help you, I want to support you. And then I think it was in a week, we got an invitation to
To a
have a
lunch.
lunch back at the university with our other defector alumni. And he was hiring a North Korean defector he had graduated
Got a
from.
PhD at Syracuse University in New York.
Yeah. And so he brought him to the lunch, and then we had our students, and then we were there. And right before that luncheon, as we were on our way, Lou gets a text and says, can you come to HR after the lunch? And so he's like, oh, okay, well, maybe they want me to promote the school or,
Like do recruiting. or
yeah,
something.
recruiting. But then he's like, well, wait a minute, HR? Maybe not.
Be different.
Yeah,
right?
so actually I couldn't stay for that meeting. I had another appointment, but he went up and they literally offered him this job and made it so that he doesn't even have to correct like long papers, just very simply, and then had the opportunity to teach. Why don't you tell them the two courses that you're teaching?
So I teach Understanding Christianity. So this is liberal arts college, the College of Liberal Arts within the university. Understanding Christianity and the Bible for Modern Man. And I started an English chapel at the university
You're being paid to preach the gospel.
Yes.
every day.
to totally unsaved kids.
My gosh.
Yeah, kids who
So-
have told him, he has them reading the Bible in class. This is the very first time in my life I've ever
And
read
a
the
visa
Bible.
sponsor to preach the gospel.
Right. Like, how does that happen?
How does that happen?
And we're here because of the break, in Korea. They have the long break in the winter, so we're able to
2
be-
months off in the
Right.
winter and 2 months off in the summer.
Yeah, which we didn't have before. So we have, family and grandchildren and children and an aging mom. So we needed that. And our mission, it's been very difficult to come here and do mission work. So God provided in a miraculous, unexpected way.
Completely unexpected.
It's amazing.
Yeah. And
So
then
I just completed a year, and I was like, okay, maybe we're done. Again, that kind of a thing. And I asked them, I said, can you tell me, how does this work? Like, do you guys want me back or anything? They're like, do we want you back? Of course we want you back. And if you want to come back, we will renew your contract right now. And they did. They renewed my contract. So I'll continue to,
so we know that we're there for one more year at least.
yeah.
And so I've taken over as executive director of NK Missions, and kind of, we branch out to not only, we still support Jungdaean School, but it's more for like special events and fundraising, fundraising to them. They really need a new building. They've outgrown that space, and
We need $2 million for that.
right.
Wow.
So if anybody listening has $2 million they want to donate, we
Yeah.
could help.
To a North Korean defector school in Busan, South Korea.
May the Lord tug on your heart.
Yeah. But so the exciting thing is, you mentioned earlier about this camp that we do. So every July, so we support other defector schools in the Seoul metropolitan area. So our school's the only one outside of Seoul. That's a special alternative school for North Korean defectors. These other schools, there's one in particular, Heavenly Dream School. They hold this English unification camp every summer. And so before COVID, we joined, and then, have joined for the last 2 years, I guess. Or
Yeah, it
This
was
is
like a
your-
vision, time.
vision trip. And then we've done it for 2 years straight, where we get volunteers to come and serve at this 5-day camp. And in that camp, we have North and South Korean students together for 5 days of Bible teaching and, sports and activities and worship. And it's been so powerful to watch God move, amongst these kids, and
Incredible time.
to show them, they have more in common than not. And also our volunteers. I mean, our volunteers have become like a family, and it's just so fun to watch how God, they go with the intention of giving, but they leave having received
Yeah.
so much. And so, we anticipate again. And, one of the things I think for NK Missions this year that's been surprising is it seems like God's putting North Korea on the hearts of many people. So we've actually probably already done about 5 or 6 Zoom interviews with people literally around the country that are saving money to come to the camp in July, which is so unusual. But it's very important. The school really relies on us to vet people and make sure, spiritually and their vision. And, it's very delicate. You're dealing with North Korean students, so
Right.
you need to know where are people coming from. And so we've already started interview process for this year's camp. And a lot of our former volunteers are already, saying they want to come again. So that's one thing, just looking to support. Lou mentioned, providing visas for some of the schools. We've been able to provide some teachers and volunteers to go to some of the other defector schools over the years. We work with at the church that Lou is with, the Korean church. They have a very large North Korean defector program. So we do special programs with them as well. And then, Hana Center. And so, just looking for ways that God can use us
Yeah.
to bring aid or money. Or we had some high school girls from the U.S., from the West Coast. One of them, for her DECA program, just raised like $2,500 for our school.
Wow.
And we have a woman who wrote a book about North Korea, like a children's book called Hana, and she donates everything she makes from that book, her book sales, to our school. So we're just so excited to be
Yeah.
used, in any way we can. And then, we've had surprisingly been asked to, I was on Arirang Radio, interviewed recently for like a 20-minute interview just about our work, and then MBC in Korea followed us for 2 days and did a piece on us. So
Wow.
we're just so grateful. It's not about us, but it's about
Yeah.
spreading awareness. And then within our church, also just having an NK Mission Sunday where we'd like to bring in former students or North Koreans just to share. And the funny thing with that is, I think I shared it Saturday night. I had an experience with a South Korean friend who heard one of the North Korean speakers and came up to me after and was like, they look just like us. And it's just highlights, the lack of really awareness that many South Koreans even have about North Korea.
Yeah.
We could never really have been prepared for that God would use us, this American couple, to bring the face of a North Korean to the South Korean people. But we are really blessed that God does use it that way. And so we've had opportunities to speak at universities and different things, and also in churches. And so, if and the trips here too, just for people in America to see, oh, this is a North Korean. It's not Kim Jong-un. It's a person, made in God's image. And so we just love any opportunity that God gives us to break those stereotypes, So anyway, those are just some
Yeah.
of the things that we do
Yeah.
by God's grace.
That's amazing. So I guess like some final questions I have, or maybe just one final question. No, there's a couple. It's what is your hope in doing NK missions and in doing the work that you do for the North Korean defectors? And yeah.
I remember when we first started teaching them, we would ask, what are your dreams? And so many of our students would just have this blank look because they had never had the opportunity to dream and didn't even really understand the concept of having a dream. And, in their very innocent way, they would answer many times with, well, maybe to have a meal with my family. And that was as high as their dream could go. And so just watching our students develop and, grow and heal, the schools offer a lot of healing programs through art therapy or music therapy. And of course, Christian discipleship is so important. The ones that really come to know Christ, really, I think if we had a chart, you would see that they're the ones that seem to have an easier time transitioning to the real world. So our hope is, that they would come to know Christ, obviously, but that, maybe the little bit that we've tried to come alongside them would make an impact where they would see that they have every right to have a dream and to dream big.
Yeah.
And if there are ways that we can come, and support them or connect them with people that could help them in that journey, I think, then we feel like we're doing our little part,
Yeah.
But, and also I think that, obviously that, things would change in North Korea. It's just getting worse and worse. And
Yeah.
the longer
even South Korea right now.
and
Right.
South
Yeah.
Korea is in need of prayer right now, and it's very tricky what's going on there. It's not exactly what you hear on the news. So there's some scary prospects ahead, even for South Korea, where we need God to intervene. So, may God just have mercy on the people of North Korea and South Korea and protect those countries, because, anything's possible.
Mhm.
And, the enemy would love to keep things the way they are or worse. The South Korean people, and the Christians there, prayer is such a. I remember being in prayer meetings when we first moved there, and I would say, "Am I even a Christian? Like, I don't know how to pray like this." They have such an amazing prayer life, and I really believe that has sustained South Korea. And so I just pray that South Korea doesn't lose that, and that we continue to be a prayerful people, and that God would reunite those countries. And Lou's dream. Why don't you tell them what your dream is before you die?
My dream before
She's
I
got
die.
morbid so quickly.
I'm old. No, that I would be able to preach the gospel in Pyongyang.
Oh,
Yeah. And, do it in a way that where I'm not arrested.
yeah. Like do it like as in
Because the
reunification.
unification has
Yes.
taken place. Another thing that is so fun for us is seeing volunteers like come to the camps, or like you guys coming for camps, and people who have like this heart but no outlet,
Mm-hmm.
and then have this outlet
Right.
and like be able to express this burden, or even if it's just like a seed, to watch it blossom. And we've seen that happen with so many people, through the camps and things like that, and give them an opportunity to be able to, express what they believe God's put on their heart. And so if there's anybody out there like that
Yeah.
listening, please get in touch with us. You can go to our website, nkmissions.org. And
I'll also be linking
Oh,
great.
thank you.
everything in the
Okay,
description.
great.
That would be
Okay,
great.
great. Yeah. So like Lisa said, we're recruiting now, and there has not been one person on our team that has not been blown away by their experience. So we know it's expensive to fly to South Korea
Mhm. And long.
And long.
And long. Yes, it's very long.
Thanks for the reminder. So we're just trying to be faithful.
Yeah.
What's our dream? Our dream is just to be faithful. As long as God has us doing this, we want to be faithful to do what he puts before us.
Yeah, it sounds like you are. I can say that from my personal experience, I have been so blessed by you two, just being around you guys.
Mm.
There was an episode that I actually mentioned you, Lisa. I think we talked about marriage or something. And for me, it was important to ask you for some advice right before I got married. And I'll never forget it. One of the first things you advised to me was, remember that you must be a helper suitable.
Mm-hmm.
And referring back to Genesis. And I take that to this day. And that was just one conversation, right outside of your father's, what was it? Where was he at? The senior center.
The senior center.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll never forget it.
Yeah.
And it's just like, this is an idea of like what kind of people you are. Just being around you, I feel so uplifted. And I think that's how most people feel.
Mm.
And I think just the few stories that you shared out of probably hundreds, it does seem like the way that God created you individually and as a couple, there is something about your aura that does attract people. And so through that, I can see how you're winning people to the Lord and really inspiring, especially young people, to at least have the confidence of being able to pursue their dreams. And so just from my perspective, I'm so encouraged by you
Very
guys.
kind.
And
Thank you for that encouragement.
yeah.
Very
And I want
encouraging.
listeners to know that too. Like Cornerstone, like We support you guys, but
Thank
we
you.
also love you guys. I
Thank
love
you.
when you guys come, and it's just never enough time. You guys are way too busy.
Yeah.
Your
Well,
times here are so short.
Yes.
But yeah, did you have any last thoughts or encouragements or challenges to everyone listening?
I mean, I think I do want to say thank you to Cornerstone, really, because I remember early on, it was very easy to be thinking often, what are we doing? Because we don't really know what we're doing. We just know we're obeying God. And just, to have your team, to have Pastor Paul come and then your team come and just seeing the joy in the kids and just, the connections made. And you have no idea how much that served us in those early days where we were walking on such, unsteady ground. And, just the continued partnership. And I love anytime, any chance we get to come to join you. But I think probably, as we get older and as our grandkids get older and our children, it's hard, to be away, to be
Yeah.
so far away. So I think, we're always, looking for God to make it clear that we're to stay where we are and to continue. And even this, after Saturday night's event, we took my mother-in-law to church yesterday because we were asked to speak a little bit. And when we were walking out of the church building, we started out our trip as soon as we got to Long Island with her asking, when are you coming? When are you moving back? And then when I took her out of the church yesterday, somebody stopped her and mentioned something about us being in Korea. And I'm sure she, wants us to come back. And she just started crying. And she said, I do, but after Saturday night, I can't ask that anymore.
Wow.
So God really moved in her heart. It doesn't make it easier for her.
Yeah.
But I was so grateful to see that she got to see a little bit of what we've been doing because she doesn't really have a way to see that, And in the same respect, when right before my parents passed away at that same center where my dad was, on the last trip that we brought North Green students to America, I had them visit my parents and they got to meet them face to face. And I didn't know that my parents were going to go to heaven 2 months later. But my mother, after meeting them, said to me, now I understand.
Wow.
And so, just to see God doing that in our parents' hearts does help a little bit. But, when we leave our grandkids and they're hugging us around the leg and saying, I'm going to miss you so much. And, it's hard. So
Yeah.
I would say just prayer for us. We want to obey God first and foremost, but we also have a tug always of missing home, missing with our family. So any prayers for that would be wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything you want to add?
I don't think I could add anything,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah.
No, that's great. Well, thank you guys so much for coming.
Yeah.
And
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
It's been fun.
this is like a treat for me.
Us too.
Yeah. Because how often do we really see each other? But okay, we'll end it there. I will be linking all the links that you want me to share,
Sure.
including your contact information. So whoever's listening, if you're interested, click on one of those links. As you come to the end of this episode of Living Stones, we hope that you've been encouraged and blessed by the incredible work that God is doing through and for Lisa and Lou in Korea. If you found value in today's episode, we encourage you to share it with others. Remember that you are not alone in this journey. You're members of God's household, united by our shared faith in the Lord and the desire to grow together. So until next time, may God's grace and peace be with you all.